Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I am Abram Kielsmeyer-Jones. This is Searches in Accordance, Basic to Intermediate, Part 6. We are working our way through the different search options that are available in Accordance. And believe it or not, even after Part 7 and maybe Part 8, there will still be much more ground to till in Accordance because it is a pretty robust app. It can be complex, but it can also be simple. So let's dive in today on this searching webinar. We're going to look today at fuzzy. Well, actually, we're going to start with review on infer. We're going to look at fuzzy, key, topic, and field commands, at least as much as time permits. But we'll start with a review of all of that. This is a multi-part series that starts with basic searches, moves up to an intermediate level. As I said, we'll start with a review of everything that we've covered so far, and then we'll get as far as we can in these commands. I put here at the top of the handout some useful links. Probably the most useful one, or at least the one that I access the most, is this very top one, Accordance Help Files. And that is extensive documentation. It includes everything that we covered. In fact, I'll be quoting from the help files to define some of these terms. So I often am referencing those. And there's some other resources here as well. I've also hyperlinked to the first 5 parts of this recording, or of this series, I should say. And so you can access those there. My email address is here, abramkj@accordancebible.com. So feel free to get in touch in between sessions. If you were watching this on a recording, our platform doesn't have a way to post the handouts with the recording, but you can email me and I'll send you the handout pretty quickly, and would be happy to do that. So there's my email address there. All right, this handout, by the way, just by way of some housekeeping, this handout that I'm showing, that you're seeing, is in the handouts section of your GoToWebinar control panel. So if you're here live, click on where it says handouts, just make sure that triangle is pointed down and you'll be able to access this, which will guide our time together. There's a questions box that you can use to communicate with me. That's a one-way typed chat, so feel free to comment or ask questions, or I might ask you questions, and that's where you could respond. And in that case, I'll either reply to you individually or anonymously share your question or comment with the group out loud. So unless there are any questions on getting set up and seeing my screen and hearing me and getting the handout, barring any questions, we will proceed. All right, well, we started with an introduction to searching, and in part 1, I said how accordance at a very fundamental level, there are 2 kinds of searches you can do in this search entry area. There are actually 4 options that you get here, but in simple terms, you're either searching verses, references, or searching words or strings of words. So we talked about that distinction in part 1. And then really a lot of what we're doing, there is some verse searching that we're doing the rest of this session, but a lot of it is word focused. We talked about connecting search commands in part 2. These are commands that, as the name suggests, connects different words together. Now you can search multiple words without connecting search commands, but you can also use search commands to further specify what the relationship between the 2 words is that you're looking for. So for example, if you want to find word A followed by word B, there is a command for that. If you want it preceded by word A preceded by word B, there's a command for that. If you're searching for something like verses that talk about God and love, or maybe even verses that describe God as love, one way toward that would be a within search. God within 2 words, 3 words, 5 words, love, and different ways to experiment with that. So that was part 2. We spent a lot of time on that. We also looked at the asterisk as a wild card to expand the search. Part 3, we talked some more about search commands in general and moved from this set of connecting search commands to standalone commands. And that's really been what we've been doing since part 3, is standalone commands. When you go to a workspace in Accordance, and you're in your default Bible text, when you right click in the search entry area, you can go to enter command, and that's where we find these commands. Again, this is just review of what we've covered, and we'll be looking at this, how to access this dialog menu again today. But at the top here are the connecting commands. That was what we covered in part 2. I covered most of them in one session. But then after that, underneath this faint gray bar, those are the standalone commands, and we've been spending more time on that. I said before, and I think this is probably right, that the top set of commands, these connecting commands, these are probably ones that even if you didn't use accordance, that would make some intuitive sense. Certainly if you've done logic or math or even just thinking carefully about language, we have a grasp of what and means or what or means and the like. These standalone commands, however, I think are maybe not as intuitive when you come to accordance for the first time, and or if you've never used them. So the word link itself could mean any number of things. So the question is, how does accordance use that? Same with contents. Even the word hits could have multiple meanings. So that's why we've spent some more time going through these, whereas probably any semi-advanced searching app would have this kind of language of these connecting commands. These standalone commands are more unique to accordance. And so we've been taking the time to understand what they mean and how they're used. So we did the range command, which narrows your what you're searching. So you can just search the Gospels, or we talked about how would you search just Paul's letters. We talked about how would you search John's writings, and those are not contiguous. You've got the Gospel of John, you've got 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John and Revelation. How do you do a search for all of those? That's the range command. We talked about the count command, which is to do with word frequency. And then part 4, we went further with the link command, the contents command, and the hits command. Contents command is really to do with verses. The hits command has to do with words. Link has to do with connecting resources one to another, so that if you want to look up a word in your default lexicon, you can still triple click to do that, but you can also link multiple lexicons at the same time. And then last time was the infer command. We'll start there today with new content, but also a little bit of review. But I wanted to give that overview in case you hadn't been, or even if you had been. A lot can happen in a week since we last met. So wanted to have us all on the same page. Let me check in with you to see if you've got questions or comments or any observations, anything you discovered this last week as you were playing with some of these commands. I'd love to hear from you, and then we'll continue on. Somebody asked if they can get the handout. Yeah, you should be able to find that in the GoToWebinar control panel. Let me know if you don't find it. You found the chat, which is good, but yeah, click on where it says handouts. Just make sure the triangle is pointing down, and that should take you to this PDF right here. This also will be emailed to you this afternoon. If you're here live and you registered, you'll get this handout together with the recording. Any questions or comments about what we've covered so far in this series? Well, let's talk about the infer command. We did that. And another question, how can I view all the previous webinars? Yeah, those are all hyperlinked in the handout. So if you're able to access the handout, they're all right here, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. And if you're interested in the handouts for those webinars, just send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat, abramkj@accordancebible.com, and when I see that email, I'll reply. The infer command, powerful and fun and interesting. It is used, as the help files say, to find allusions or inferences between texts in 2 tabs using the same set of characters. And we talked about how that same set of characters piece is important. So, and maybe this goes without saying, but just to say it anyway, you could not do an infer search between the Greek New Testament and the Hebrew Bible, or you could not do an infer search between your Spanish Bible and your English Bible. Actually, maybe you could, but it wouldn't really work. Technically, the characters are the same, but the words are different, so it won't work. The point here is that what you need to do for the infer command to work is have text basically of the same language. And so we used an example last time. The question was, how would I find citations of Isaiah in the New Testament? Or how would I find allusions to Isaiah? And we spent a little bit of time, we won't do it again today, but just talking about how terminology is, it varies from commentator to commentator. You've got quotations, you've got allusions, you've got echoes, which is which, what constitutes which label. But you can do that research and or decide on your own. What the infer command will do for you is just surface common language. And so we did this search using, remember, the same set of characters. So what we could not do for this search is use a Greek New Testament tab and a Hebrew Bible tab, or even Greek English. We needed Greek and Greek. And so just to very briefly review that search again, we did LXX for one tab. So here's my Septuagint. I'm going to open up Ralph's. So there's that. And then the next tab was a Greek New Testament tab. So I'm going to just start typing GNT. We can take this text right here, make the font a little bit bigger. And I took the tab here. I'm going to click, hold, drag, and drop. It's almost as catchy as stop, drop, and roll. Click, hold, drag, and drop. And that's so that I can see the Septuagint and the Greek New Testament next to each other. Now, the infer command has to do with comparing two tabs. And hits and contents and link are all like that too, in the sense that you're looking at multiple resources together. Not every standalone command is like that. The range command just needs one text. The count command just needs one text. The link command links together multiple texts. The contents and hits and infer command all compare one tab to another tab. So this is, it's a standalone command, but you could almost put it in its own class of standalone commands. Accordance didn't do that. They didn't want to get too confusing, but it's almost like its own, comparative standalone search command, because what we're going to do is start by looking at one tab, which is the Septuagint. So I'm just going to narrow this down with a range Isaiah. And that's not much of a search in and of itself. I could have just skipped ahead there using the go-to box or typing in Isaiah. But what I want to do essentially is limit my Septuagint text to Isaiah. I suppose if I had an Isaiah only text, I could just use that. That's Göttingen, the critical edition. I don't expect most people have that, or maybe you do. You could also do that and not do the range. But this range is great because it's flexible, because what if you want to do Deuteronomy next? So define your range, which we've done, range Isaiah. So that whole text now is limited to Isaiah. It's as if Accordance is only reading this as the Isaiah book of the Septuagint, which is good. That's the first step. Now the next step, and this is just review from last time, is to use the infer command in the Greek New Testament, because what we're looking for is, how does Isaiah show up in the Greek New Testament, whether that's half a verse quoted, 3 verses quoted, common language. Again, we can sort that all out later, but what we want first is the data. And so we're going to use the infer command. And I've put the language here. I mean, you could just copy and paste this. But I can go to the search entry area, right click, enter command, and there's my infer search. There's a keyboard shortcut you could use as well. You could also go to the menu, the search menu up at the top, enter command, same menu here. So you could enter your infer command there. You can also just start typing INF. And notice as I'm typing, Accordance has this quick entry feature, and it doesn't know, it thinks maybe I'm searching in Greek. In fact, I didn't even change the verse token to words. I don't have to because this quick entry is pretty comprehensive. So I started typing and here's infer, so I'll just select that. So again, if I were doing this more quickly, I would just do it like that. It took me barely half a second. So now it's going to say select the infer tab, and if you have multiple tabs open, just get the one that you want. Well, I want the one called LXX Ralph's tagged. I could, by the way, once I've limited the range to Isaiah, I could rename this tab LXX Isaiah. Notice that the name is there, and now when I do infer, that name will show here. So if you're doing a lot of these searches, I would recommend taking the time to just right click, rename tab. There's a keyboard shortcut for that too, and do something that makes sense to you. Maybe you don't want to take the time to do it, but just if you open up multiple texts, like multiple Septuagint texts, it'll start to say things like LXX Ralph's tagged 1, LXX Ralph's tagged 2, 3, and so that gets a little cumbersome. You might rename it. Infer, select infer tab, I want Isaiah, and I'm just going to do this default search. You can change the number of the words in the phrase, so you can get more or less exact or have more or less commonality surface. There are some advanced settings here that we won't go over, but I'm just going to hit OK, and it completed the syntax for me, infer 6. Now I can jump in there manually and change that if I want, but I'm going to do infer 6. I'm looking for something like a string of 6 words with overlap. And so just to be clear, what I'm telling Accordance to do is search the Greek New Testament, because that's the tab that I'm searching in. Search the Greek New Testament for inferences or times where there's an overlap to the level of 6 with LXX Isaiah, which is this right here. And you can see here, it's surfaced some stuff already. I mean, we get Matthew, not surprisingly, a whole quotation here and more. Now, some of this will require some interpretation. It's possible some words are just incidental, but this one pretty clearly is not. We talked about this too last time, and then we'll review it again with another example just because it's such a powerful command. But you've got now your set of inferences, again, from which you can interpret the data. You may, depending on the strength of your Greek, and this isn't meant to be a Greek webinar per se, but you may just open up an English tab and you can start to see, you can see here, this is in bold in the NET, so it's a quotation. You can start to see what's showing up in your search. So the question then may arise, well, all right, Matthew 1:23, this is great. Seems pretty clearly to be from Isaiah. My parallel English text will probably tell me, check the footnotes. Here it is, a quotation from Isaiah 7:14, 8, 8, 10. You can also select text. So we've got, and they will call his name Emmanuel, or they will name him Emmanuel. You can select that text and then right click and search back linked text. Now, this is an interesting command in Accordance because it's really functioning like a standalone command, but it's not available in the same place that all the other commands are. I don't know exactly why that is because I'm not a developer, but I do know that that command won't make sense unless you've run the infer search anyway. So I suspect that's why they didn't put it there, because it wouldn't do anything. I can't speak to that, but you can select text that's been found in an infer search, right click, search back linked text. Now what this is going to do is it's going to search back the linked text. So in other words, it's going to search what I found in the Greek New Testament back in the source text, which in this case is the Septuagint. And that's what I want, because my question is, where in Isaiah is this? Well, here's Isaiah. So to find where, search back linked text, hit enter. There's a new tab, and it found Isaiah 7:14. It also filled in my search entry area, and look at this fairly robust search string that I didn't have to come up with myself, but it basically took the Greek words, used the and connecting command, and then searched the contents of this tab. And the contents, as we saw, has to do with verses. So it searched all of the verses of this tab for this phrase, which is exactly what I wanted. And I could have done that on my own, but much easier to just right-click, search back linked text. And you could continue to do that for other phrases. Now, all of this you could do in English as well. You could open up, let's say, let's stay with the NET. So I'll use the NET. I'm going to duplicate this tab, Command D for duplicate, click, hold, drag, drop. Now, you notice that the name here, that's not super helpful. So I'm just going to rename this. We're going to call this NET Isaiah, and we're going to call this NET, we're just going to call it NET. All right, actually, we're going to call it NET New Testament. So it's a little different to do this in an English Bible, because now we will need a range here if we want to narrow this down to the New Testament, because the NET has the Old Testament as well. But we know what to do, range Isaiah. So that's the same way I started the other infer search. And now for this, I'm going to do infer again. Select infer tab, keep it at 6, select OK. Now I could hit enter now, but I'm also going to add a range by just starting to type range, just like I started to type infer, and I'm going to do Matthew through Revelation. So again, this is a little different. Before, with the Greek New Testament, we didn't have to do that because it was already narrowed down. But if my question is, how does the New Testament use Isaiah? And maybe I want to look at that in English. It's all the same, except I just need to narrow this range down in the NET at right. So I've got the same text. I mean, it's really searching, it's one text searching another, or searching side by side with another. But I want to see Isaiah as it shows up in the New Testament. Now, sometimes these searches will take a minute, hopefully not a literal minute. This should be done in just a second. I'm not sure why it's taking as long as it is. But this will give you pretty much what we saw before, just in English. And we're going to come back to this. Not clear why that's taking the time that it's taking. That's the infer command. I'd love to hear comments or questions you've got, or your own use cases. I do want to more briefly show one other example that I think is really interesting. It's a pretty specific example, but I think it's one that might be useful. Here's our search that ran. You can see here, you're getting really the same verses, just everything's in English now. Will give birth to a son, and give birth to a son. And like I said, some of these things, where is the one who? Well, you know, that's maybe a stock phrase. So some of these things you may or may not count as the use of Isaiah per se. The data is here for you to interpret. But we could just go back to give birth to a son, and that same search back linked text will work here. We did not do this in English last time. But here it is, taking you to Isaiah 8:3. Now, I said we won't go into a lot of detail unless there are questions about it, but I said before, you can adjust this number here. We've got 344 verses showing. If I change this number to 5, you can see it's not, something's wrong with that. Let me try that again. Oh, here we go. This accidentally inserted that there. I've got range Isaiah here. If we do infer, we could just try 5. As you change the number after the word infer, it's going to give you, basically the question is, how close of a citation do you want? How close of an allusion do you want? And so the more on the infer that you have, the more chances it's going to be an allusion. If you just say infer 2, infer 3, you're going to get 2 or 3 words quoted at a time, but that's probably not a quote. That's just commonality of language. So when this search runs, I'll come back to this and show you that again. But I'll move us now into what I think is a more complex search. that we could do in really any language, as long as it's the two tabs in the same language. And that has to do with comparing the wording of the 7 letters to the churches. Let me check in with you and see what comments or questions you've got. Yeah, someone says it's taking a long time as you were making 6-word phrase and comparing to 6-word phrase across the entire New Testament. That's a lot of work. Yeah. Yeah, and it will also be true that as you, and I don't know the science behind this, but as you sit down and do a session of running multiple infer searches in the same text, it does sort of speed up over time. But you can see here this infer 5. I mean, this is not as useful. Like this is the record of, and it excluded that word and took this 5-word phrase. That's not, not helpful. So it defaults to infer 6. And again, you can modify that as needed. Yeah, let me know other comments or questions. Let's build another search. And again, what you, I think, want to do with infer, I mean, you can just play with it, but really the question is, what do you want to accomplish here? So what am I looking for? And we talked last time too about, comparing, maybe you're reading through the Apostolic Fathers, so some of the first Greek texts that were written after the New Testament, and you'll notice quite a bit of overlap. Maybe you've got the communion story in the Didache. The Didache itself overlaps with Matthew in language. You can look at that across those texts using the infer command. We looked at an example of that last time. But let's take this case study, and again, it's just maybe you want to see how does Josephus overlap with something if he does. This is going to compare the wording of the letters to the 7 churches in the book of Revelation. Now, I'm starting with a list of the references of the 7 letters. Where would you get this? Well, you can get it from the handout, but where would you get this in your own study? Well, it probably is as easy as just looking at the section headings, which you want to make sure you have a text that has section headings, but under set text pane display, under advanced, just make sure the section headings are shown. And then you'll see here to the church in Ephesus. Now, I don't know why that heading is coming under 2:1, but you've got the reference. So 2:1 to 8. All right, Smyrna 2:8 to 12 or 2:1 to 7. These are off for some reason. But you've got the idea. You could look it up in a commentary, maybe you know. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up 2 tabs, and I'm going to do this in English. This would really be better done in Greek, because if you're comparing language, I mean, you hope for a consistent translation across the course of the translation, but this would better be done in Greek. And even if you don't know Greek, you can open up parallel panes. But in this first tab, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this reference list. I'm just going to copy and paste it in. So just as before with the Septuagint, we essentially limited this tab to Isaiah, we're going to do the same thing here with a reference list for all of Revelation. Now, I suppose you really could have just done Revelation 2 through 3 here to limit it, or even, yeah. So that does the same thing. You could do it that way. I mean, there's multiple ways to do this. I'm doing this whole string because I'm going to keep coming back to it. So I'm just going to do that. Again, that's not the most efficient way, but what I want Accordance to do is limit this to the 7 letters of Revelation. And I'm going to rename that. So that's what's here. What is showing here is all of the content in the 7 letters to the churches in Revelation. All right, so that's the first tab. Now, in the next tab, what I want to do is compare one letter to the others. Now, there's no real automated way to do this that I know, but that's okay because I might just be studying a letter at a time. And here's actually why I did this list, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the infer command. So we know how to get this by now. We know I can start typing, do quick entry, keyboard shortcut, right click, enter command, infer, search, enter command, infer. Pick your tab, 7 letters rev, okay. And now what I'm going to do is actually limit my tab at right to Revelation 2, 1 through 7. Because what I want to see here, I'm going to just take this letter by letter. We won't do all of them now, but this was this is not just a theoretical study. The first time I preached on the 7 letters to the churches in Revelation, this is the first thing I did. I read through them as a whole, but then I wanted to start comparing them. So what I'm doing here is infer 6, tab 7 letters to Revelation, and then range 2, 1 through 7. So what I want Accordance to do is find overlapping phrases from all the letters that show up in the first letter. Now I'm going to take out the first letter here because that's I'm not comparing it to itself, and that's why I have the strike through in the handout. And then you can just go through and do this manually. When you're ready to do the second letter, keep the first reference in, take out the second one, put the second one here. All right, so here is that search run at left. Let me try this again. I'm going to take this text, copy, paste it in. I need to take out the first letter. I don't know why it is not. It's not liking this for some reason. So it's making me do it manually, which I don't understand. So 2:12 through 17. Sorry about the delay here. Yeah, something's funny about this. I'm going to try to set this up again. You might even do it this way. I'm just going to do Revelation 2 through 3 here. Call it Rev letters. I'm going to infer. Pick our tab, and then we're going to do our range, Revelation 2, 1 through 7. Now, this is why this won't work, because I'm getting Revelation 2, 1 through 7 repeated. So really what I'm going to just do here is Revelation 2, 8 through 3. The verse reference in a range of verses are in reverse order. Okay, so I need through 3:22. All right, sorry about the delay. I don't know why it wasn't taking the copy and paste there. Something was wonky with that. All right, so here's what I want. I want the reference, however you put in the references, whether it's contiguous or a string, I want them all of the letters except for the one that I'm looking at. So the first letter, let's say I'm studying the first letter. So I do letters 2 through 7 to compare them. That's what I limit this text to. And then in the tab next to it, I do infer and range Revelation 2, 1 through 7. So what this will do is show me overlap of language. In other words, search all the other 6 letters as referenced here in the first letter for phrases up to 6 words. And you can see here, again, this would be better done in Greek, but even in English, you can see, look at this. We've got a whole line here. The one who has an ear had better hear what the Spirit says to the churches, or hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. So the question is, all right, that's definitely in at least one of the other 6 letters. Where is it? And we know now, select the text, right click, search back linked text. And it does not want to do it, which I don't know why it won't do that search. I apologize. Try another phrase. All right, here's another one. This is the solemn pronouncement of, and I'll have to follow up why that one wasn't taking. This is the solemn pronouncement of. So maybe that's the phrase that I'm looking at. Well, here it is in 2:8. Here it is in 2:12. Here it is in 2:18, 3:1, 3:7, 3:14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it looks like that phrase is in every letter. The angel of the church in. Select that text, right click, search back link text. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, also in every letter. How about this one? But I have this against you. Right click, search back link text, only in one other letter. And again, you can draw what conclusions you want from that. At this point, Accordance is not so much interested in the conclusions you draw as it is in showing you the data. Yeah, I still don't know why that's, let's see what, yeah, I'll just have to let that be a mystery and figure out what's going on, why that one's not working. But any phrase that shows up in this letter, you can search back here. And then for the rest of the letters, you would just adjust the references so that the first tab is excluding the letter that you want to research and has all the other 6. And then the second tab has the letter that you want to search. All right, let's move on to another command. Unless you've got questions, I'd love to hear them. I'm sorry that some of those functions weren't working as expected. I'll figure out what's going on there. But let me see from you what questions you've got. And also, I'd love to hear how you use the infer command. I find them always picking up lots of tricks and tips from different users in these handouts. So let's take a moment to see what questions you've got. Somebody said, this is a good question. Somebody asks, what is the benefit of having 2 separate panes over adding parallel panes? Yeah, it depends on what you're doing. For this, a parallel pane is going to tie the text together, which you can turn off that tie, but it's also, when you have a parallel pane, you only have one search entry area. So you can only, whatever you search in one, it goes to the other. They're conjoined in that way. Whereas with a separate tab, you get the text and the search entry area. So that's why we have that open as a separate tab. There just isn't a way with the parallel pane to run the 2 different searches that we need. We need a search in one tab and a search in another tab. So that's why we do it that way. Yeah, somebody says I had trouble with the search back feature also. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. And somebody, same person, could one report the headings out of place like other error reporting? Yes, and if anyone wants to do that, that would be great. I wonder if it's in other text too, but I mean, this is clearly not correct. It should be above that. But the way to do that is you select the text, right click, and report correction. I've never noticed that in the NET, and I wonder if yeah, no, it's something that's in there. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. And I will also report that at the end of the webinar to make sure that that gets picked up. Oh, good. Someone said they cut and pasted the search string for my handout and it worked. Yeah, I don't know what was going on in my accordance. I'm gonna actually just quit and restart and see if that helps. All right, any other comments or questions on infer before we move on to the fuzzy command? These next commands, by the way, we won't take as much time on. I really wanted to sit with the infer command because it's so powerful. And again, just think about what texts might you want to compare? What have you wondered? You know, I mean, certainly New Testament use of the Old Testament is a big one, but you're not limited to that. I mean, as long as you're using the same set of characters, the same language, you can compare multiple texts. All right, well, I welcome infer questions throughout the rest of the webinar. Let's talk about the fuzzy command. And again, this is one of those words where it's, what does it mean? Well, the help files define it. The fuzzy command can be entered before a phrase to allow the number of words specified to be dropped from the search. This helps locate phrases that are similar but not identical to the search text. The number variable represents the number of words that can be ignored in the phrase. The 1 can be replaced by any number up to 2 less than the words in the phrase. All right, so in other words, if you're looking for a phrase and you want to leave room for not getting it exactly right. Now this, I think, for me, I find this most useful when I remember a verse a certain way and I'm pretty sure that's how the verse goes, but I'm not finding a string of words. Now often this will happen because maybe you memorized in the King James or the NIV and you're searching the NET and it has a word or two off. So a good example of this would be God loved the world. If I go to the NET, I'll just stay in that. I'm gonna search God loved the world. Okay, so that showed up. That's good. There may be a text where you get some variation in what you, let's see. Yeah, I'll stay with this one. The fuzzy search is basically going to, you can see here, God judged the world. It's going to basically give you that search minus the one. So God loved the world, God judged the world, God in the world, God conquers the world. If I had searched God so loved the world, that did not show up. And that's what I learned. For God so loved the world that he gave, and if you go to the NIV here, pretty sure that's what I memorized. Yeah, found it right away, no fuzzy search needed. But I went to the NET, God so loved the world, nothing. Wait a minute, where's John 3:16? Well, it's there. And that's where the fuzzy search comes in. Now it offers me the flex search. I'll come back to that in a minute. I don't want to search it with the flex search. I just want to go in and add fuzzy and fuzzy one. Because so is one word. And basically you just do that until you find it, but I found it right away. It does not care where you put the fuzzy command. You can put it before or after. And all of these commands, you can build them on each other. So you could connect this to a range command and build a more complex search. But this is, again, it's good for if you're looking for a phrase and it's just not showing up, or you're not sure you have it quite right, use the fuzzy command and you can add a number to get closer to what that phrase is. And there may be, if you've got other examples of how you would use this, I'd love to hear them. But really what it's meant to do is help you find something when the wording's not exact. And when you go from translation to translation, that will happen. There's a great video, I hyperlinked it in the handout, the difference between a flex search and a fuzzy search. If I did God so loved the world in my NET, would you like to search with a flex search? I do. And it did find it, but the flex search has to do more, and you could see this in the video, but the flex search, which was way back at the very beginning, has to do more with taking a word like love and finding the different inflections of it. And so if love is a verb, it will find loves, loved, other variations of it. That's the flex search. The fuzzy search is, oddly enough, more flexible than the flex search. And that's why I say some of these, this is just accordance specific terminology that once you learn it, you'll be able to put it to good use. And again, I'll just show the help files here. You can access them in app, any of these commands, just type them into the search and you can get right to the help files. This has more examples here and talks even too about how do you change the number and if you want to go deeper with this. But the fuzzy search, it's a great search, especially if you're trying to find something and you're sure it's there, but it's not there. In this case, God so loved the world. When I added the fuzzy search, I was able to find that because so is dropped out of the search. God loved the world. And you can actually see here that the so is translated as this is the way. And they defend that translation, which is pretty expected when you take a verse that's known a certain way and your translations committee is going to say, well, we actually think this is the way is a better way to render it than so. And somebody says, well, everybody knows it is God so loved the world. And so you get a nice long footnote there. Comments or questions about the fuzzy command? I told you that would be a lot quicker. But that might be worth experimenting with. Oh, this is going back to the NET. Yeah, the NET online has those headings correct. Okay, so that is a problem in accordance. Somebody says fuzzy seems to show for accuracy you should use Hebrew or Greek. Yeah, and this will work. I mean, I think for demonstration purposes more than anything, I want to do as much English as possible. But yeah, all of these commands would work. Just trying to think of a way to construct this, but Yeah, I would play with that too, but this will work across different languages depending on what you search. Let me know if I'm not understanding your comment or question. Somebody else says flex does not remove the word, so it would not remove the so in so loved. Right. Good. Yeah, so fuzzy takes you farther. But yeah, this video, I don't remember how long it is. I don't think it's very long, but that's got a good explanation of the differences. All right, keep the questions, comments coming. I'm going to actually jump ahead to topic and style because it's occurring to me that the key command, and we actually did an example of the key command before. We will come back to it maybe today, if not today, next time, but there's a little bit more here. And I want to talk about topic and style to make sure we get through those. The topic command is all due respect to the developers who work so hard on it. It's not one that I use a whole lot, and you may not either. It will let you search, as it says, for all verses in a text associated with a specific topic. So this is different from a word search, and this gets us just into some kind of basic review. If I'm searching the topic of faith, and you can see here, actually I didn't even need to change that to words, it will do it itself. You can see here that Accordance gives me in the quick entry the words that start with F-A-I-T-H in the Bible. So I'm going to just use that key or that wildcard asterisk that we looked at before to get all of them. So now I'm telling Accordance, search for the word faith and anything following it. So that will include faith, faithful, faithfulness, and the like. And if there were a word like unfaith or something, just put an asterisk at the beginning. That doesn't hurt anything. All right, so I've got a nice search here on asterisk faith asterisk. And so this would be a starting point for, say, a sermon series on faith. But what this will not do is give me the topic of faith. Surprisingly, what's not here is Genesis 12 and then 15, where Abraham believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. That's 15 right here. Now that is very much an act of faith. Accordance did the right thing, but the word faith is not there. So you can use this topic command, and looks like that didn't have it either. What this topic command will do, and again, like I say, I don't use this a whole lot, but it will give you verses that Accordance under the hood has tied to particular topics. And the topic of faith, for example, then Caleb silenced the people before Moses, saying, "Let us go up and occupy it, for we are well able to conquer it." Well, talk about faith. So the word's not there, the topic is. Deuteronomy 6, the Shema is there. The thing about this command is that it's difficult to know exactly how this tagging has taken place. So again, I use it, I don't use it a whole lot. I think, I don't even know how you get at the topic list. If somebody knows, let me know, but it is there. That's what the topic command is. So type in topic love. He kissed all his brothers and wept all over them. After this, his brothers talked with him. Probably the most useful way to use this, and I put this command here, is do both. Search the thing that you're interested in. So let's say we want to find the word love. Use the asterisk, maybe on both sides. Maybe we want unloving or unloved or something like that. And then use the or connecting command and then do topic love. And this will give you a lot more hits. This will give you the word, but also when Accordance has tagged a certain verse to the topic theme. And I'll just go back to the help files here. If you want to look at this more, here you can see all verses in a text module that have been associated with a particular topic. And yeah, this is just not documented anywhere. So like I say, as much as I rely on the developers every day, because I don't have a list of this, it's not something I tend to use a whole lot of. However, it will get you to more verses than just your word search. So it's at least worth a try. I don't think there's anywhere to get that full word list. If somebody knows I'd love to know it, but I don't think that's accessible. Any comments or questions about the topic command? We'll move on to the style command. The style command, and this is maybe a little bit more niche. If you don't use highlights, then this won't really be useful to you. But if you do, this is allowing you to search your highlights. And you know, the question here is, as I'm reading a text, whether it's a Bible text or a tool, I want to track what's significant to me, but I also want a way to surface that later without having to scroll through the whole thing. So maybe I finished reading a book of the Bible or a section of commentary or a book, a monograph, and I want to search all the highlights. That is the search command called style. And in order to do this, you need to have a highlights file active. So again, if you don't have any highlights, this won't really do anything for you. But in the toolbar here, I've got highlights, and this could get us into a whole other webinar that has to do with highlights. So let me know if you have questions. I'm just going to do the short version for folks who are already using highlights. Hopefully this will make sense. You want an active highlights file selected, and Accordance gives you multiple highlights files. Mine clearly need to be cleaned up, but here's one that I'm going to use. And so I've got a yellow style, I've got a blue underline, and so on. So make sure that that's active. And by active, it just means that's the selected file. So once that's ready, now you can search any text for whatever highlights you have. And so let's go to a text where, and I'm just trying to, I don't remember what I have a lot of highlights in. I think the NRSV. So let's just try style. Access it the same way as all the other commands. I'm just typing here. And the question mark is telling me to fill it in. I'm going to put the asterisk here because I want to search all of my styles. And all of those styles are seen here. The file is my mobile highlights. The styles are these. So I'm searching all of my styles. And that's more often than not how I use this. So you can see here, I highlighted a whole verse in Genesis 1:11. I highlighted part of Genesis 2:1, the heavens and the earth, all their multitude. And these are all my different highlight styles, which means something. And you can get really specific and detailed here. And again, if you haven't, this won't be of use to you. But if you have, maybe you've put symbols all through your text, you can search them this way. If I wanted to just search for double underlined, I tend to use yellow for emphasize and double underline for really emphasize. Then you can use the same command, style, and then name the style. The asterisk covers everything, but I'm going to go to style, and I need to get the name right, double underline. All right, so I'm going to keep that there, double underline, close that bracket, hit enter, and there are all of my double underlines in the NRSV. By the way, these files are a little on the haphazard side. This is not that these are the only verses in the entirety of the Bible that I would emphasize a lot. It's just what happens to be double underlined there. So if you are using this particular feature of highlighting, you can search all your highlights, both words and verses. You can even get more advanced. I'll just leave these as for further reading here, but you can even do, you can search within your styles for particular words. So this search string here will allow you to search all of your yellow highlights for Jesus. You can get even more advanced, Jesus or God, Jesus and God, and everything we're doing here. I mean, we're doing a lot of these commands in isolation, but they can really all build on each other to get to some pretty complex searches. And this is a very easy to imagine use case. I want to see all of the yellow highlights where the word Jesus occurs, and you can pull those up in like half a second. That's using the style command. Let me know if you have questions about that. I know that gets into a whole other feature that we haven't covered in these sessions yet, which is highlighting. it has been a while since I've offered a highlighting session. It's actually been kind of a long time. There are more, there's more documentation in the help files. We also have webinars. If you go to help and webinars, there are some highlighting webinars. I'm not sure when the last one was, but you could search your way through there if you're interested. But if you are a frequent user of highlighting, this is super useful to be able to search through your styles. All right, let me check in on questions. Yeah, here's a great comment. Let me put this in the chat. Someone says style is very useful if you use Mark Hoffman highlighted Greek files. Yeah, there's a, what's that called? Understanding. Yeah, there it is. Well, that's his companion one, but yeah, he's got a, yeah, look at this. You can see morphological coding. This is a particular resource from Mark Hoffman that well, basically it's a preset highlighting file that you can use for your text, and then you can search those in particular. So that's what that comment is referring to. Let me see what other comments or questions folks have. Somebody says, I'm not sure if this will work. To get a list of topics, do topic asterisk. There it is. That did work. Sorry, I doubted you. Wonderful. All right, there's your list of topics. I didn't think that would work. That's great. And I don't know, you should be able to get that from enter Word, but it doesn't. Anyway, yeah, that's great. So when you run this search, this is back to the topic command, topic asterisk, it's not actually running any topics. It's giving you the whole menu to choose from. Thank you so much for that. I would have spent some time this afternoon trying to find that. Now I don't need to. So here's the whole list of topics. And once you have that list, you can type it in here. You can even see God's love is its own topic. So that's interesting. And that's going to narrow down your search more. So yeah, that's probably the place to start, and then decide, okay, does this look robust enough? I mean, it's actually pretty robust that I want to use this. And like I said, I would do that or command where you're searching how Accordance has classified it as a topic, but you're also searching the word at the same time. Thank you so much. Great comment. Let me see if there are other questions. We'll use the rest of the time for questions and just cover next time what we did not this time. If there are no questions, I can take a minute to do the field command, but I would rather hear from you. If you've got comments or questions, what we covered today, we did a lot of review, spent some time on the infer command, the fuzzy command. We skipped the key command for now, but we did topic and style. And yeah, happy to see, hear from you, comments or questions you've got. Okay, somebody says the last highlight session they attended was 2024 from Ryan. So it's probably been a while since we've done that. Let me give you 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds on the field command. And we did actually do this because someone had a great idea in a previous session. But the field command is going to answer questions like, what books of the Bible begin with the word in? Or what chapters of the Bible begin with the word God? And so this is one of those commands where you're actually joining commands. You are using the within command, and I'll just read from the help files. The field command works together with the within command to specify the range from the beginning or end of the current search field. And a field would be something like a verse or a chapter or a book. So Adam, within 2 words, field begin, finds each case where there are less than 2 words from Adam to the beginning of the verse. And you can do either the beginning of the verse or the end of the verse. Let's plan to cover this next time because there's actually some specific settings you can do and try this in different ways. But if you want to read ahead and try these out, you could copy and paste these in as they are. So if the question is what books of the Bible begin with the word in, I'm just going to copy paste that right into any text. And now that is chapters, so we want to do the scope here. And we'll do this again next time, but let me change that to book. Actually, that was verses. So Genesis, Ruth, Ezra, Ezekiel, Daniel, Haggai, Zechariah, John, and Acts all begin with the word in. We'll spend more time next time talking about the scope here, because you could basically do this: what verses begin with the word in, what chapters, what books begin with the word in. But this is a fun, I mean, it makes for fun trivia, but there's also more than just trivia, reasons why you may want to see how sentences begin and end, and look for, where is God the first word of a book or something like that. All right, well, we covered less than was in the handout, but this is all here for you to take with you. And anything in blue font here, I've meant to be a search command that you can just copy and paste into a search text. So I wanted to make that as easy as possible. And then also understand how to build these commands, because there will be command combinations we won't cover in this series that you'll be able to piece together depending on what it is you're trying to do in Accordance. I'm going to stop the recording, but I'll stay on for just another moment or two to make sure I've answered everyone's questions. If you are watching the recording, thanks again for taking the time. If you email abramkj@accordancebible.com right there on your screen, I'd be happy to get the handout to you.